Just want to make a quick announcement. On this table here is everything is for sale for a very reasonable price. If you're interested in any rubber shirts or a cap or mouse pads, everything is over there. If you want to make your purchase anytime before you leave, go ahead. There's almost no profit in it. It's almost at cost. Okay, so now we welcome Dr. Badawi to this blessed evening. He traveled all the way from Halifax to Los Angeles. He was busy with a conference in Los Angeles, and then he flew from Los Angeles to Vancouver to come and join us tonight. We had a very busy schedule, inshallah. Dr. Jamal Badawi is not a stranger. He's been into BC for several events. He's a professor of economy and management from St. Mary's University. He's also... Yes. Yes.
Did I send you a bio?
Yeah, but انت غني عن التعريف يعني.
No, but sometimes there are inaccuracies online, by the way.
Yes. So أهلا وسهلا. Yes. So he's also has done so many Islamic lessons and activities, Islamic teaching series, a long time ago, from early 70s, early 80s, debates and so on. Tonight, inshallah, he will address an interview. He didn't want to do it as a speech. He doesn't want to bore you guys. He thought it's easier to be in form of an interview, questions and answers. So we're going to present questions to Dr. Badawi, and then he will answer, and then he will take questions and answer from the audience afterwards. Right, Dr. Jamal?
Right.
Okay, so now we'll start with the first question. Is this adjusted properly to you?
Maybe I'm not as tall as you have it. Maybe.
If you like, you can take it out as well.
Oh, no, that's
okay.
Fine. Can you hear clearly there? Any echo?
No. Maybe it's from the side, maybe.
Closeness to the speaker, I think sometimes.
No, it's my mic that's doing it. My mic is a little closer to you, so you are okay on that end.
Energy waves.
Okay, I'll just move over here then. طيب, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So Dr. Badawi has also been active on this issue, being an Egyptian himself, from an Egyptian origin. And the first question that comes to mind, could you give us a background of the January 25th revolutions? What took place?
I'd like first of all to say Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ala sa'ili anbiya'illah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa wala. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Whether you are Muslim or any person of other faith community, still the greeting of peace has been the greeting of all of the prophets in history. I am very thankful to Allah first and to you all for affording me this honor that I don't deserve of addressing you. I would love to sit down and learn from you all. Now, as far as the question raised about background, well, you could spend hours in doing that, or you could spend seconds, but I take moderate time to that because it would be useful, at least, especially for our friends from our other faith community, or those who are not familiar with the Egyptian scene. Well, basically, if we skip or fast forward history to the era of monarchical absolute rules, that continued for many, many decades, ending with King Farouk was the last of that dynasty, and then came a military coup in 1952 by certain young officers in the Egyptian army. And they made a solemn promise from the very beginning that they're only there to establish or begin the process of democracy, go back to their barracks, and let the civilian life continue in the country. In fact, that promise was just very similar to recent promises from military that were not really proven to be true. In fact, it inaugurated 60 years of military rules in Egypt that varied somehow in its degrees of oppression, but oppression, yes, lack of democracy, yes. Violation of human rights, yes, no question about that. Whether it was first under Jamal Abdel Nasser and the killing and executions, unfair execution that he did to any political opponents, and especially in Egypt, the main opposing party that always stood against this tyranny has been the Muslim Brotherhood. In any case, after he died, came Anwar Sadat. He was in a weaker position, and he wanted really to make some kind of relaxation in the tyranny by which Egypt was ruled. But still, towards the end of his life also, he started arresting people and continued, actually, more or less the same kind of absolute power of the military. After his assassination in 1981, that was taken as an excuse by following governments to declare martial law. And we understand martial law in any democratic country is not an easy thing to do. There have been several presidents who were assassinated in the United States who never heard about martial law, categorical martial law, which effectively means suspension of any rights of people and the possibility of arresting anyone without any cause. But even if martial law is declared in any advanced country, it is something of very, very limited duration, a few days or something. And that martial law continued from 81 until the end of Mubarak's era. Imagine a country living for decades and decades and decades under martial law, suspension of freedom because someone was assassinated, even a president. So it was quite a convenient excuse. The other half of the 60 years under Mubarak were the most corrupt years. Oppression continued also, but perhaps on and off. People would be arrested under martial law, and when the judge ordered their release, while they're taken from the jail, they're arrested again, sometimes even before reaching home. So that was like a revolving door also of continuing the same type of policies. But it was marked mostly by very severe corruption, by the machinery and machination of the so-called Al-Amn al-Watani, or Amn al-Dawla, the security organization, which is one of the fiercest, heartless kind of people who are selected and trained specifically for torture, for arresting people, for spying on them. One of the, I don't know if I say something comparable to the Gestapo or similar kind of oppressive mechanisms that has been used. People were fed up of this, and what happened in January 25th was something that really was amazing, even for the organizers, and went beyond their wildest dreams by maintaining and keeping the pressure, keeping the demonstrations, taking in many, many casualties. Of course, we know what happened in Ma'arakat al-Jamal and other incidents of that nature. So they continued that pressure. It was that pressure actually that ended with the abdication. Notice here, it's not kidnapping of Mubarak or imprisonment. The abdication by Mubarak of his powers as president. So he signed to that, he agreed to that. And the power actually literally fell into the arms of the military, supposedly, like all previous promises, supposedly as only transitory period until the democratic institutions, which is a major demand of the revolution of 25 of January, to take place. But again, there have been lots of flirting on their part. They tried somehow through various declaration, constitutional referenda, and all of this to somehow uphold to this power. But the pressure continued on, and they could not keep delaying anymore. They were forced actually by public pressures and demonstration to conduct the various istihqaqat, the various votes, which are necessary to really begin a democratic type of life. As it were, many of those votes, free clean votes with the testimony of people from inside and outside, blameless, took place, including the election of the lower house, as it's called, for example, in some country, and the upper house, the presidential election, that it so happened that the head, or the then head of the Freedom and Justice Party, Dr. Morsi, was elected in a very highly contested type of election. So it was fair, it was contested. And finally, they came the constitution, writing the draft constitution, not by some secret people unknown or just people who were appointed. There were people actually who were originally elected. If they came from the Shura, or the upper chamber, these people were elected. They took quite a bit of time to write the draft constitution. It was finally put for referendum and got a substantial vote on the part of the public, which means that they accepted. During the year in which Morsi ruled, it was not only lack of cooperation on the part of the deep state of Dawla al-Amiqa, as they say, which actually showed that what has gone already was the head of the system of government, not the government itself, not the approach, the oppressive and corrupt approach that has been, from which Egyptian has been suffering for many, many decades. Recently, some of you might have seen confession on the part of the person in charge of the Mukhabarat al-Amma, the state security, or you might say intelligence service. And he admitted that he would not give the reports to Morsi. You know, every president, every day, they are briefed on what is happening. And they asked him why. He says, because how could I give intelligence information to someone who betrayed his country? Kha'in, betrayal of his country. The Minister of Interior acknowledged that he did not follow the instruction given by Morsi. All the various apparatus of the state, whether in the judicial system, in the government-controlled media and others, continued the very same type of approach. But it did not stop at that. Actually, there were various fabricated crises, like the oil crisis or gas and all of this. And by the way, many of these are controlled by the army. This is something very interesting. We heard Mr. Wright talking about, or was it, Sheikh Idris, about almost 40% of the Egyptian economy is in the hand of the army, and beyond any control, beyond any review, and nobody has anything to say, even the president, about the secret budget of the army, which is part of the whole manzuma, the whole system of corruption in the country, unfortunately. In any case, they were also counter work to destroy what Morsi is trying to build. I'm not defending any person or others. In fairness, in honesty, we say that even things that he tried to do, there's always obstacle put in his way. When he called for the cleaning of Cairo, there were reports of after they clean, trucks come and bring the garbage and put it back again. So there were the people who lost their control and their privilege as a revolution, and actually were not only waiting in the dark to hit again at the people, they were actually trying to destroy every progress that he makes. Well, as it happened, because I have to fast forward more, we come to the late part of January, hardly a year out of the 4 years for which the president was elected by the populace. And we all know what happened. The coup d'etat, military coup d'etat took place. The Minister of Defense gave himself the authority not even to imprison the president. Actually, it was kidnapping because there was no information about his whereabouts, no contact with family, no contact with lawyers. As it happened, the events of June 30th to July 3rd actually were a fruit of a severe campaign of hatred and even incitement to violence. Media became basically a tool in the hand of the state, and that was not the end of it. It became worse even later on. As we are all aware that the military coup was already officially declared on July 3rd, with a Minister of Defense rebelling against the President and his Al-Qa'id al-A'la, the highest authority even in the military as president, and gave himself the power to disregard all the elections and votes by the populace, to freeze the constitution that was already passed by the populace. So this is basically what happened in brief, after which it became worse. Then we had what Mr. Wright mentioned about, I forget some, sorry, I mixed that maybe with what was in the video that I came towards the end. That there was no longer any free press. You get 50 stations, for example, or dozens of TV stations. All they say is just like carbon copy. You get so many newspapers, except maybe for a couple, all carbon copy. And immediately, as soon as this was declared, various channels were closed, various newspapers were closed, and what remained even was closed later on. So the media became really a tool in the hand of the military coup, let alone the tasyis al-qada, the politicization of even the judiciary system itself that has been established and structured at the time of Mubarak, so that they really can control the people by law in a way, or by people who have been specially chosen for that through the so-called constitutional type of court. I'm sorry if I bored you with these details, but I tried just to capsulize a lot of history.